Hey there, it's Mr. Orgek, and we're here for Unit 9, Lesson 5. And back in the last unit, we did completing the square method. Now we're going to actually use it to solve a quadratic. So let's start rolling. Okay, in this quadratic equation here, we've got this. Y equals 2 times x minus 2 parentheses squared minus 36. So we got it set. You set it equal to 0. We're going to find the zeros here. So first thing I would do is bring that 36 to the other side. So add 36, and you will get 2 times in parentheses x minus 2 squared now equals 36. Next step, divide by 2, divide by 2. So you get x minus 2 squared equals 18. And then what do? Square root both sides. So you're going to get x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 18. Remember 18, the biggest perfect square is 9 times 2. So square root of 9 is 3, radical 2. And finally we will get x equals, bring the 2 to the other side. You get positive 2 plus or minus 3 radical 2. Okay? That is your answer. Now, in part B, they want us to find a 0. So you have to do find 2 plus 3 radical 2. And if you plug that in your calculator, you actually get 6.2 about. And the other one is 2 minus 3 radical 2. And on that one, you get negative 2.2 to the nearest tenth. So those are your answers right there, okay? Not hard to do, just like we did in the last lesson. Now you're actually doing the solving part. We're taking the next step. All right, let's move on to exercise 2. All right, here we go. On number 2, we are going to do one by factoring and the same thing by completing the square to get the idea. So got the x squared right here. It's a trinomial. Everything's on the left side. So, and I see that nothing or no GCF, so I'm going to go with 2 sets of binomials. We know x squared is x times x. I will bring down that first sign as a minus. The boss right here says minus. It got to be different signs, so this guy has to be the other opposite, which is a plus. 16 are my factors, 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. And which pair, of course, subtracts according to the boss to 6? It's going to be 2 and 8. Put the bigger one first. 2 is the second one. And now all we got to do is tee it up because there's no more factoring involved. So once you do x minus 8 equals 0, you'll bring the 8 to the other side by adding it. So you get one answer, which is 8. And on the other side, you get you got x plus 2 equals 0, sorry. And you're going to do a minus 2 to the other side, so x is going to be equal to a negative 2. Okay? So those are your 2 answers right there. Now we're going to do the same thing by completing the square. So with completing the square here, if you remember, I'll change colors so we can see what we got going here. On something like that, remember we write down the first 2, so the x squared, we put down the minus 6x, and then we go with 2 blanks, then the minus 16, and then the equals 0. So we give that little space in there. Remember, we take half of that negative 6, so that's a minus 3. And then I bring it back up by squaring it, and it's always going to be a positive. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And because I just added a 9 to the problem, I change it. I got to do the opposite, minus 9. Come back down here now. I don't even have to think about factoring because all I got to do is put the x in front, put a little square on it. And that takes care of these first 3 right here, or factored if you want. These 2 guys got to get combined, and a minus 9 and a minus 16 is a minus 25. Put that together, equals 0, and now you've got it in the right form that you can start stating the shifts. Well, we're not looking for the shifts. We're not looking for the vertex now. They actually asked us to find the 0. So next thing you do is bring the 25 to the other side. Add 25 both sides. Once I do that, I get the x minus 3 is squared, and that equals a positive 25. And then your next step, of course, is we've got a nice perfect square there. How do I undo that square? On this side, there's nothing else left. You take the square root, and you take the square of the other side, and the big piece here is, remember, plus or minus. We learned about that. So x minus 3 is what comes out, because this square and the square root right here, they cancel. Equals plus or minus the square root of 25 is 5. You add 3 to both sides, because we want x by itself. Please do not add that 3 right to the 5 and just tell me plus or minus 8, okay? You actually get x equals 3 plus or minus 5. So we're going to go off to the side here, and the bottom line is one answer is x equals 3 plus 5, which of course is 8. So there's an answer. And the other one is equal to 3 minus 5, which is equal to negative 2. And if you notice, they match with the same way we did by factoring. It's just another method. Beautiful job. Okay, in exercise 3 now, you are supposed to, first one is, we're going to look at this other one up here, and we're going to complete the square again. So I advise you pause the video right now, give it a try yourself. I'm going to go through this, but pause me and do it. Come back and listen and check. Okay, while I'm doing it, hopefully you did it right. We're going to take a look here. Once again, I take the x squared. I put the plus 6x here. I do 2 blanks, and a plus 2 equals 0. So then I take half of this 6x. Half of it's going to be just a 3. You're just doing this of the 6. And then I'm going to bring it back up by squaring it, and that's going to give me plus 9 and a minus 9. Put the x out in front here in parentheses with a little square sign on it. And then these two guys turn out to be minus 7 equals 0. And we got to solve for it, so I'm going to bring the 7 to the other side. So I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to cross it out because the opposite of 7 will be to add 7. I'll change the 0 here now to adding 7. And I've got a perfect square, so we will take the square root of this side, and we will take the square root of that side. So then I get x plus 3 then comes out equals plus or minus radical 7. And my last step, which I'll have to go down in this territory here, is I bring a minus 3 to both sides. So I get x equals negative 3 plus or minus radical 7. I cannot break down radical 7. So that answer's all set. In part B, it says try to factor this. Well, if we try to factor this, we got x, we got a trinomial here. So if I try x and x, okay, and let's say I set it equal to 0. And then the boss right here says it's got to be a plus. It's got to be the same signs. Well, the first one's a plus, so that's got to be a plus. So the second one has to be a plus. And factors of 2, there's only one way, guys. 1 times 2. Do they add up according to the boss to 6 here in the middle? Never. You can try all day. I put a 1 and a 2, and I don't have any other choices. Won't work. It is not factorable. Okay? So the bottom line in this thing is, we'll talk about it in the bottom one, so it's not factorable. Okay? The part C says, how do you know about factoring? Well, factoring only works with rational numbers, so that's your answer. If you get an irrational, remember, this is irrational. That part right there, that's the irrational part. I'll abbreviate. So factoring only works with irrationals. Only works with, sorry, not irrational, rational numbers. Okay, rational solutions. All right, that's what they want you to get out of it. Can you do it? Many ways, but factoring does not always work. All right, in exercise 4, we're going to take this equation, and they want to put it in vertex form first and state the turning point. So we will start off with that. I'm going to take this 2 and factor it out. I will be left with x squared minus 2x, and then half of negative 2 is negative 8. And that's all equal to 0. I will take half of that negative 2, which is negative 1, and square it. So that's negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. So that's a plus 1 here to make the perfect square. Complete the square. And then the opposite's a minus 1. So I will have 2 times in parentheses and x minus 1 squared. And then this is going to be a minus 9 equals 0. Okay. And they want us to figure out the vertex form here. I got to get that 9 out of there. So actually when you pull it out, you're going to have 2 times then in parentheses x minus 1 squared. And remember that 2 times this minus 9, so it's a minus 18 on the outside, equals 0. Sorry, that was supposed to be 0 there. I don't know why I did that. So what's my turning point? Well, my turning point is going to be the opposite of that negative 1 right there. So it's going to be positive 1, negative 18. That's the turning point. Okay? Now we're supposed to find all the zeros. So I'm going to complete this problem here. We have 2 times x minus 1 squared. Bring the 18 to the other side, equals 18. Divide both sides by 2. So x minus 1 squared is equal to 9. Take the square root of both sides, so x minus 1 equals plus or minus 3. Okay, and then I take 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. There's a 0. And I get 1 plus 3, which is 4. That's the other 0. So those are 2 zeros. Now in part C, they actually want us to find the y-intercept, which means we start with f is 0. And I plug 0 in wherever there was an x. And you'll notice that everything, this thing just zeroes out here, this thing zeroes out, and I get a minus 16. So what's my y-intercept? 0, negative 16. Okay, now they want us to graph it. Well, if I go down 0, minus 16 somewhere down here, I'm just going to do a quick sketch. We have the point back there, 1, negative 18, so that's a little bit lower. We have it crossing at negative 2 to the left, so 1, 2 to the left is here. 4 to the right is here. And basically, if you sketch this thing, it goes down and comes back up, and we will have a picture of it. Okay? So I used a few things. The zeros we've got right here and here. I've got the y-intercept and I have the turning point. And they all come down and turn. And there will be another point right about here on the opposite side. And you'll hit your points as you go along. Okay. Well, let's move on to exercise 5. Okay, our job in the last one here, the quadratic picture has a leading coefficient, the quadratic of 1. And if it's not 1, we got to do something else. So we will get to that. Don't go there yet. We got to write the equation in the vertex form. So the big key is, what is the vertex? Well, here it is down here. It is a negative 1, comma, negative 4. And you remember the y equals, and then it's x minus, so we got a 1 out in front because of the a. We're not worrying about that. And this is a minus 1, but remember the opposite has to be true inside the parentheses. So instead of minus 1, it's x plus 1 squared. And then the minus 4 goes on the outside. And bingo, you've written the equation in vertex form. Now they want you to write the equation in factored form. Well, in order to do that, I need my 2 zeros. What are my 2 zeros? A minus 3 and a positive 1. So if I'm going to deal with that, a minus 3 and a plus 1 are my 2 answers. Remember, they are opposites also, so I would get y equals, and then instead of minus 3, you put x plus 3 times x minus 1. I will get y equals, when I go and do the box method off to the side, or you double distribute, whatever you want, you will get an x squared. And then on the outside here, I got a minus 1x inside plus 3, so that's plus 2x. And then 3 times that is a minus 3 on it. That's my equation, okay? So we get that piece. Finally, it says, how could you establish if these are equivalent equations? Okay. Well, you can either turn around and take the 1 like this, y equals x plus 1 squared, the first one, minus 4. And I actually do the x plus 1 times another x plus 1 minus 4. So I will get x times x is x squared. A 1x and a 1x make 2x. And 1 times 1 is plus 1 minus 4. Finally, it's x squared plus 2x, and 1 minus 4 is minus 3. And this is exactly the same thing. You also could graph both of them to prove that they turn out to be the same, okay? So we got a lot of relationships there. The vertex form and the factor form are going hand in hand, just different ways of doing the same thing, and each has their own positive piece. The vertex form gives you the turning point nicely. The factor form gives you the zeros nicely, okay? Write a nice WSQ, and have a good one.